welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about how to become an esthetician, and I'm going to be talking about my experience and then a little bit about the requirements of the state that I'm in and the general rules that you will have to follow in order to become an esthetician in the United States in general. So essentially, I go to school in New Jersey. Due to COVID, I wasn't able to go back to school in DC. So for me, going to esthetician school just seemed a little bit natural since it's a career I would like to pursue. And my family and I decided it was all right to do. So I'm very fortunate to have this really great opportunity to do this. Essentially, I go to a private, I guess you could call it, institution. It's just not like affiliated with a university at all. It's just its own company. Essentially, I go online. I go online for 75% of the program up until 500 hours, and then I finish my last 100 hours in person. So step one when it comes to becoming an esthetician is finding the location you want to be an esthetician. It is important to understand where you're going to be spending a majority of your time. This even goes for if you're thinking of moving to another country. I know that specifically in Korea, because I also looked into school there, that they actually go to a more like college type institution than what most people in the US do to become an esthetician. I couldn't transfer my US license to Korea because of the difference in the schooling. So it's really important to know where you want to go. Also, if you're in the US, you want to know how many hours are required of you in the state that you're in. In New Jersey, it's 600, but if I saw myself moving to Florida or if I went to college in Florida, I would probably reconsider getting my license in New Jersey because I know that maybe I would go back to Florida. Not that I go to school in Florida, but I would go back at some point and maybe spend more time there than I would in New Jersey. Also, one more thing about location, it's important to know where you want to practice because some states like New York only has 50 more hours than New Jersey, but they can do a lot more. So they learn way more than I would in terms of like tools and like really special treatments. They learn way more than I would in New Jersey. Not that that's a bad thing, I would just have to go back to school and maybe take some extra classes to better understand those tools. So after you've decided where you want to get your license, the next thing to do would be to look for a school. Now, a lot of community colleges actually have a esthetician or cosmetology school attached or just affiliated with them. The other thing that you can do is look for like private institutions rather than like public or like through a university. The more private institutions, I don't really think that there is a huge difference other than maybe reputation. If you're looking to really show off your degree, I would say go to a private institution. But if you're really just looking for a degree and you're just looking for the esthetician license, then I say, you know, you might save a little bit more money at the college. For me, the pricing was actually extremely similar. So it didn't really make a difference if I went to the university or if I went to a private. I went to a private just based off like family recommendations. So for me, I wasn't really thinking about reputation per se, because honestly, when it comes to being an esthetician or a cosmetologist, getting your license is important, but doing extra coursework after that, like going to master classes and getting licensed in like special treatments, is what's really going to make you stand out if you're really thinking about pursuing cosmetology or esthetician services as a full-time job. I would say that looking for a school, think about what you really want from it. But I also would keep in mind that you're probably going to be taking a lot of courses afterwards to like give you those certificates in special treatments. If you're looking to save money, I say go with the cheaper price and then take a lot of master classes afterwards. It'll be beneficial either way, at least from my point of view. When it comes to schooling, make sure that you know what the school is doing, especially when it comes to COVID, in terms of, are they online? How long are they online? and are they going to make you go in person, and they're not doing online at all. I do think that I chose the school I did because a lot of the other ones did not offer online. So now for tuitions and payment plans. Tuition, honestly, I would say from the places that I looked at, averaged between $7,000 to $10,000. And I was looking both in DC, Virginia area, and then New Jersey. Honestly, it is quite expensive if you're looking for payment plans. What I have seen is that you need to really get ahead of the game with that. I would be enrolling a lot earlier than most people, because I know that at least my school, when it came to payment plans, had said that you needed to enroll at least like probably around 2-3 weeks earlier than the start date, so that all of the payment plan or financial aid could be registered and applied in time. And it is quite expensive, but I guess it really depends on what state you're in, the amount of hours you're doing, and what program you're doing. You could be a nail tech and it could be immensely less expensive, because at least in New Jersey, nail techs only have to do around 300 hours of schooling. I'm gonna lump a couple together with enrollment and uniform. So when you enroll, you just sign a couple papers. At least for me, I only signed like a couple papers, looked at the orientation packet, you know, just signed that I could pay the tuition, yada yada. Then when it comes to uniforms, usually the school will give you a paper that tells you the type of uniform you need. And then they're usually partnered with a nearby store that provides those uniforms for you. Make sure that when you go there, what I did was I asked for help from the employees, because they usually know your school and what they look for. My school, they're rather strict about the color of the scrubs that you need and the styling. So some schools are very, very picky about what you wear. So I wouldn't try and deviate from that, and just ask for help, because people will guide you in the right direction. The next step would be starting school. So after you enroll and you have your uniform, depending on whether you're online or you are in person, you will be doing things like theory and practicals. So for me right now, I'm doing theory, and then I will be completing my practicals, which is like physically doing facials, doing makeup, learning how to use machines in the building. So for testing, and after this, we're gonna get into the Q&A. So for testing, my experience, I have to take about 1 to 3 quizzes per week online. Essentially, I take a 300-hour test, which is my like midterm. I take a 600-hour test, which is like my final test. And then I have this state written exam, and then I have the state practical, which actually right now in New Jersey, they're not conducting. So technically I wouldn't be a real like licensed esthetician until they start doing the practical exams again. And that's just a whole story in itself. Basically, even if I don't do the practical exams right after I graduate, I get a like temporary license where I can practice for about 3 months. But after that expires, I'm not allowed to legally practice anymore. So that is an issue for a lot of people right now. So let's say you get to your written state exam, at least this is for New Jersey. I believe they do give you a free written exam. If you pass, you get to move on to the practical. If you pass that, then you get your license. If you don't pass the written, you have to keep retaking it until you pass it. The issue with that is that you do have to pay each time you take it, but I believe it's a small fee, at least for New Jersey. And then you can take the practical exam. Again, if you fail the practical, I believe that you can keep retaking it. I don't think you have to pay for that one though. And some schools, at least my school, they allow you to actually practice for the practical in their facilities before you go to actually take the practical. I know this is a lot of random words, but just bear with me. Yeah, I think those are really all of the steps you need to take. And now I'm going to answer just a couple quick questions that you guys had that weren't really answered within these steps to become an esthetician. So the first question I have here is, how long is esthetician school? So at least in New Jersey, you have to do 600 hours. In some other states, like Florida, I believe you have to do like 1,200 hours to be an esthetician. I can't imagine cosmetology school because usually that's like 1,000 hours in New Jersey or 1,200, something like that. So it's a lot of hours in certain states and then it's a lot less in other states. It really depends. September, October, November, December. I graduate the like first or second week of January, like very early in January. So that's around what, August, September, October, November, December, six or 5 months as a full-time student. I do about 27.5 hours a week. So someone also asked, like, is it more medical or technical based? It really depends on your state, what your state allows. For us in New Jersey, we really have a lot of restrictions. Like doctors actually have to do a lot of the things that estheticians might actually do in other states. Yeah, like laser hair removal, people in New Jersey, estheticians in New Jersey can't do. That is a medical procedure, so you have to go to a medical spa. But I believe that if you are an esthetician and you work at a medical spa, if the physician is overseeing the procedure, I believe they can give you permission to do it if they train you in it. So there's a lot of loopholes, I think, although there are restrictions, but I would say in esthetician school, we learn more technique like European facials, stuff like that, rather than like very medical type tools. So the last question is like, what is school like? Is it what you expected? What surprised you? It's definitely a rocky road because it's like a whole new online environment. Most esthetician schools did not do online courses before this. So this is honestly, I think the school that I'm going to is really a rare occasion because even now during COVID, schools aren't doing online. Like they're still sticking to their in-person, which makes sense, but doing esthetician school online is a blessing, but it's also a curse. It's a lot of just things that we're trying to figure out on the way. Although it is a hassle and it can be like quite annoying sometimes. Like I get pissed off all the time by it. I do appreciate it and I think it's teaching me a lot. Thanks for watching this, guys. If you have any questions about esthetician school, leave them below. You could also DM me on Instagram, whatever you want to do. I'm always here as a resource. I can really provide as much as I can based off my state and the other knowledge that I know. But yeah, watch the 2 videos in the end screen and bye.